Hey, listeners! Welcome back to Tales of Abundance. I am John Oberg. Wow, that was a chipper one, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, bringing the energy today. I'm here with Randy Lorensen, my co-host here each and every time. And so, Randy, welcome back.
Yeah.
I didn't have coffee right before this. I'm not sure what just happened there.
I don't know. The little energy spike at the break.
Might be the topic. I don't know. We'll find out.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about company mission and vision boards today, John. And I think this is a logical next step. The last episode, if people haven't listened to it, was about core values.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so we're going to go into today a company's mission. Yeah. And then vision boards for individuals and how all of that ties together.
Yeah, that's right. And so we've talked about the role of a leader before. And so there's like clarity, sustainability, and execution of the three things in there. Clarity has to do with core values and outcomes, mission statement. Mm-hmm. And then alignment is the execution part of it. And alignment's about how you get people motivated with their vision board personally to the company mission. And getting those things aligned is one of the most powerful forms of motivation you can have for an employee. So that's really where we're headed today.
Yeah, and I think if you run a company, obviously having that vision is the next step. If you're an individual, having a vision board is a fantastic tool and exercise for you as well. So I think this speaks to everybody in a little bit different ways. So, company mission. Let's start there. What is it? Why do we have it?
There are scholars, people much smarter than me that have there's a mission statement and a purpose statement and a vision for the company and so purpose, mission, vision. I think you can have all of those things. And there's a brand promise and so I think the one thing I wouldn't want the listener to get hung up on today is language, right? We're going to use the language that I use with companies, but please understand there's other people who are very, very smart who use language a little bit differently, and that's okay too. The important thing is you have one set of language inside of your company. And so for the companies that I work with, we've chosen a very explicit set of language. And the mission is the thing you talk about inside your company. Right. And then the brand promise is how you talk about that, what you're promising to your customer, the people that are paying for your services or goods, whatever the case may be. And you might have a vision that talks about how you get to your mission statement. I've seen people do that before, and there's no problem with that. But we talk a lot about the mission. We talk a lot about the brand promise. And then we talk about some other ways about how you get there. Some people use the vision statement as that, and I think that's all fine. But for this podcast, we're talking about mission is the thing we talk about internally with the team that tells people why we exist.
Okay, great.
And this can change, by the way, over time. Like in Bill Gates, in Microsoft, for the first, I don't know how many decades it was a PC on every desktop. That was the mission, right? And then when they got there, I think Microsoft has a different mission now. But their core values are likely still the same. So, yeah.
Okay. And within that company is made up of individuals who ideally have a vision board. And what is that?
Well, I mean, a vision board is what motivates someone to hit their goals annually. And so my vision board is like pictures of the emotional draw of the things that I'm trying to get done year to year. And so I set some goals every year. And then I have a vision board that I adjust every year to remind me why I'm working towards those goals. It's kind of it reminds me of my motivation, essentially. Right. And so, I've made different vision boards over the years. Some people make a new one every year. I'm really supportive of that. Mine, I make adjustments to every year, and sometimes it gets a complete overhaul. But it really is about giving me the emotional motivation to make the decision each and every day to kind of take the next step that day for the things that are important to me in my life. And I don't look at my vision board every single day. That's not something that happens. But there are people that do.
Okay. Well, let's jump into what's the difference between a mission and a vision? Let's differentiate that.
I think, again, different for different consultants and people that do this stuff regularly. For me, a mission is why we're doing what we're doing, and a vision is how we're going to get there. Okay. So there's the what and the why, and then there's the how. Mission to me is the what and the why, and the vision is the how.
Okay. So what is essential? Somebody's listening, they have a business, they have a company, they're setting a mission. Yeah. What are the essential things they need?
I think for a mission, you want to be really clear and you want to be concise. Like I don't think you want it to drag on for a paragraph. I think you want it to be memorable, like easy to remember, really, really clear about where you're headed. Like a PC on every desktop. Like that's pretty clear. It's measurable.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
Colin's talked about big, hairy, audacious goals. Like it's all those things, for Microsoft. So I think your mission doesn't have to be a PC on every desktop, but I think it's got to be compelling. It's got to be memorable. It's got to be hopefully measurable. Right. Mm-hmm. I think all those things.
Okay.
And I think going out and finding like all of the, biggest mission statements from companies in the world can be an easy way to kind of pick your own mission. So, and for me, it's, my mission professionally has been similar for a long time.
So how does I guess why is it important? Like, how does it impact a company's ability to hit their goals and be successful?
I'm not a runner. Start by saying that. But if I were going running and we were going to train for a race, would you want to know if we're training for a 100-yard dash or a marathon?
Seems helpful.
Okay. And if you were training for a 100-yard dash or a marathon, you probably know more about running than I do. Would you train differently for a 100-yard dash and a marathon?
Well, I don't like running much more than you do, as long as it's for a sport. But yes, you would definitely train differently.
Yeah. So I was a swimmer growing up, and I was a sprint freestyler, not a distance freestyler. And the distance freestylers had much different workouts than we had as sprint freestylers. And so knowing where you're headed changes everything about what you're doing. And so, it's like, let's take hiking as an example. You can go on a 2-hour hike for just a walk in the morning. You can go on a 3-hour hike that includes a picnic in the middle, or you can go on a 60-day hike for the Camino in, Spain. And it's a 60-day hike where you're doing 10, 12 miles a day. Do you prepare for a 2-hour walk in the morning differently than you do for the Camino?
Definitely so.
Yeah, I don't know what the differences are necessarily, but I know there's differences.
Right.
And I think if you're gaining and losing elevation when you're hiking, you should probably practice that. And you may decide to use trekking poles like I use when I go hiking in the mountains, but I don't use those when I'm walking around the trail, near my house. And so I think a mission statement tells people what trip you're on, and it tells you, where you are on the trip, so you know what bag to pack. So you know how far you're going before you get to rest. You know where the water is along the way. I think it's really, really important that the mission tells you what the end point is. So if I'm going to Mount Everest, I need to pack one way. If I'm headed around the equator, that's a different way. And I bring that example because there's a guy that I met who was a motivational speaker decades ago named Jamie Clark. And one of his trips was to Everest, and one of his trips is across the Sahara.
Okay.
And the preparation for those trips is really, really different. Two very different missions. Right. When you think about a mission in the military, again, not a military guy, don't know the military well, but I do know that each group that goes on a mission equips themselves and prepares themselves and trains for that mission. And so the mission of a company might be decades long, but it's got to equip itself for the moment in time of where it is and what the next step is on that mission. I think that's why the mission is important, because if you don't know what the mission is, you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
This tells you what you're doing.
Okay. So let's get into the nitty-gritty, how to create it, right? You've done this for yourself. You've helped multiple companies, including mine, create a mission statement.
Yeah.
So what does somebody do? How do they do it?
I think the owners need to be clear about why the company is created first. Like if you don't know why the company is created, pretty hard to pick a mission, right? So that's step one. Let's
say they don't know. How do they do that?
Well, then they need to think about why that's the first question is why do you have this company? And I've talked to people about like, why have it? Like, should you just not have it?
Okay.
There's a lot of people I've talked to that said, I want to start a nonprofit. Okay. Well, is there another nonprofit that does that? Do they already do it well? Is there a reason you're starting one that's not them? Is there a reason you're not helping them? Like, there's a series of questions you want to go through about like, I'm not saying you shouldn't work in the nonprofit world. I'm not saying you shouldn't start a nonprofit, but if there's somebody else out there who's doing it extraordinarily well and your resources could benefit that in a way that you're excited about, why not join forces? Right. So I think the first step is the ownership or the leadership of the organization. If it's a not-for-profit, need to get really, really clear about why. Yep. Simon Sinek's Start with Why. Mm-hmm. This seems like a very prudent first step.
Okay. And alignment, we've talked about in previous episodes. What should this align with?
Well, I think that the first thing you need to do is align the mission with the intent of the ownership. What are the long-term goals and why ownership is around? I've met owners who it's like, hey, look, we're working to make a profit so that we can spend our time outside of work doing good in the world in this way. That's a very reasonable approach, right? I think, I'm a Christian, and so I talk about, Paul the Apostle was a tent maker so that he could be, putting the gospel out into the world. And one thing I'm definitely not as a biblical scholar, so there are going to be people that write in and correct me about things right, left, and center, I'm sure. But the reality is that some people are tent making for the purpose of making a living so that they can do their purpose outside of their work. And that's totally okay. And there are people where their purpose is their work, and that's totally okay. And I make no value judgment about one or the other. I do encourage people to know which is which and which path they're on.
I was thinking, so I was also thinking, though, just even core values, 5-year goals, 10-year goals, 30-year goals, whatever goals people have, right? It needs to align with those as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, if I want to go to Mount Everest, there's a whole series of skills I've got to learn. There's training I need to do. There's, dollars I've got to spend. There are people I've got to hire. There are there's lots of things to do to make that trek to Everest. And I'm thinking to myself, like, am I committed enough to go to Everest? Maybe I have the work ethic. But what I'm definitely not is committed to that end goal. Like, that wasn't a thing that I wanted to do. So if I was like, we're going to go to Everest because it's a great idea and I can make a company around it, but I'm not really committed to going to Everest because it's not that important to me. Well, leadership for a company, kind of same type of deal. And I think there are lots of investors in the world who their job is to make profit as a part of what they do. We have professional investors and private equity firms, hedge funds, and their job is to go out and return the investment with a return on the investment for the investor. And then maybe they also have other primary or secondary goals about how they do good in the world or whatever the case may be. But that could be a goal set. I've met lots of people who want to start a company because they want to solve a particular problem for the world. And that's also a goal set that's great. The part that's challenging is when you have mission drift and when a company gets created for one reason and then it turns into something else inadvertently. That can go well. In the case of BMW, which was an airplane company, it became a car company over time because it shifted to the market. Like, I get that. But there are also times where that doesn't go well, where a company keeps transitioning. Like, I still don't know what Magic Leap did. They raised a whole bunch of money and did a whole bunch of work with technology, but I'm still not totally clear on what they were doing. And I haven't tried that hard, to be fair.
I think, and again, somebody might want to correct me on this, I think BMW was forced to change because I think after a war they were not allowed to make airplanes anymore by the Allies. But
I need to fact check that. I don't know that one.
I think.
Yeah,
I think that's when the change came because they weren't allowed to. So
yeah. But I think some companies have a lifespan where maybe they just need to get purchased, bought, absorbed, shut down, whatever the case may be.
And you're talking about Everest. I can't help. This is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I can't help but remember. I don't know what it was, 3-4 years ago. You called me. You were trying to put a canoe team together to go down this race.
What a disaster!
You had 3 people. You were like, oh, I need a 4th person to be in this canoe and race. And by the way, Randy, we're not going to sleep for, I don't remember what it was, like 2 days.
Hours, 72 hours, something ridiculous.
Yeah, like for 2 days, we're not going to sleep, and we're going to win. We're going to buy a really expensive canoe.
I don't know if I said win.
You wanted to like set records, right? You were like, we're not just going to go down this canoe. Because some people stop and they do
this. Can the editor cut this out? Like, can we just not? Yeah, you're all, by the way, all this is true, unfortunately.
And I was like, no, not interested, right? Didn't fit my mission.
By the way, after two lessons of diligence, one where he had a professional instructor teaching us how to row at that level, and one where we went out on a canoe to see what it's going to be like for 3 or 4 hours, also not committed.
Okay. By the way, I didn't know you went forward with this.
Oh, yeah. We went out and...
I never heard this.
Oh, yeah. So I went out and did it. We hired a professional person who'd helped other people prepare for this race, and we learned about all the things we were going to have to learn and all the techniques you'd have to find, and then we went out, and a couple of us... Thankfully, the other person that went with me is a far better outdoorsman than I am. And we went out for 3 or 4 hours and did this. And it was like, oof. Now I understand what I'm really signing up for. And I decided that the investment was not worth it. It just wasn't worth it to me.
Yeah, I thought that was really obvious at the beginning, clearly. But I guess everybody gets there at their own pace. All right, good. Good to know.
But having said that, I did go hiking this year. I took a 10-mile walk from Crested Butte to Aspen, which I wouldn't have done several years ago. And we got prepared for it and did it with a group of friends for a friend's birthday party. And it was really fun. It was a really great experience with a group of people, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And a few years ago, we did the Tour of Mont Blanc in Europe, where we walked around Mont Blanc for 8 or 10 days. That was super cool. And so I think, but 48 hours in a canoe, that's not my jam.
You were very excited.
I was excited. I really wanted to have some. And you know what it was, Randy? There are times in my life where I've wanted to be passionate about it. I've wanted there to be something. Like, I have a lot of jealousy is not the right word, but a lot of both respect and desire that we're like, I've met people that are so into like trout fishing or so into hunting or so into golf. And that just, none of those things has grabbed me in that way. And I have a real like, wow, that is a wonderful passion to have in that way, because there's so much you get to pour into that and so much they get out of it. And I find that in other ways, but I don't have that one thing in the way they do.
I 100% get it, right? Like it's, I look at my son and the way he loves music.
Oh, yeah.
I wish it moved me the way, like,
I tried guitar.
Music,
I tried guitar and I just didn't have,
But it's great. So, yeah. All right. Let's, sorry to take us down a rabbit trail there, but
interestingly enough, the guy that went to Everest didn't summit the first time. He did summit the second time, and he had a list of things he learned the first time in failure. And I can't remember all 10 of them. I remember one of them, and the one that I remember was bring more toilet paper. And it stuck with me because it was so unusual and so radically different, and so about like the level of detail to handle the mission, and what not having toilet paper would do to the morale of the team, and all those things. And so I think from a mission perspective, like it told me a lot about how he learned through failure, and how they improved the preparation process the second time, and how committed to the mission they were. Like, can you imagine trying to get to Everest, failing, then trying again? Like, whoo! Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah,
not for
sometimes when you fail on that one, you die. You don't get to do it again.
Yeah. Or sometimes when you get to the top, you die on the way back down. Then you haven't succeeded there either. Like that's, yeah.
All right, let's move to vision boards, and I think this applies to everybody, right? So this, whether you're the person that starts the company, or you are the newest, lowest employee in the company, having a vision board is a fantastic tool that I know has been really beneficial to me. So
I think
tell people what is a vision board.
I think not as a worker, just as a human, I think it's good to have a vision board. Right. And this is about, tapping into your inner motivation, right? And there are reasons to be motivated extrinsically, like for money and material things. And there are reasons to be motivated intrinsically, doing good in the world. And I think people can be both intrinsically and extrinsically motivated. And I think understanding what it is that motivates you, and then choosing the things you want to work on for a period of time. And so I think that, when you're younger, shorter periods of time. As you get older, a year is typically the time we talk about for goal setting. And Ogilvy wrote a great book about living without goals. It's about all living with intention and not goal. I think there's some validity there too. But I think the vision board is about tying into your motivation each day to remind you why you're doing it, because you want to have a sense of delayed gratification, and not focus on the delay, but focus on the gratification, and having goals that you may have to work at for a period of days, weeks, months, years in some cases, to have that gratification. And so, I remember reading stories about buildings that would get built in Europe and in Asia, that it would take generations to finish a building. And so you would start a project that your grandchildren wouldn't finish. Like, that's a type of delayed gratification that I just don't see that as often today. And I think that technology is moving us to a place with more immediate gratification, more and more and more, and that it's having chemical consequences for us in our brains. They're drawing us away from longer-term delayed gratification. And so the vision board is really about having a daily reminder visually of why we're delaying gratification, to do what we need to do to get what we want to have for our own reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Let's paint a picture here for a listener a little bit. What types of things do people put on a vision board?
Yeah, so for me, one of the pictures I have on my vision board is an advertisement from a company called Patek Philippe, which is a watch company. And it's not about me wanting to own a watch. They have a byline or a tagline that says, "You never own a Patek Philippe, you take care of it for the next generation." And that's the way I want to envision all the opportunities in my world, all of the material things that I have, the world around me, the time that I get with my kids. Like, I want to remember it's not mine, it's mine to take care of. Right. And so that picture it's a picture of a father and a son.
Love it.
Right. And so, so to me, it is a very emotionally powerful message, not about owning a watch,
right,
but about taking care of this stuff.
Love it.
But things and not things, right? That I'm a steward of. And so that's a reminder of me about what I'm here for. Right. I'm a Catholic. And so in the middle of my vision board is a picture of the crucifix that reminds me what's important to me. Right. Mm-hmm. On the top of my vision board, there's a picture of an older couple holding hands. In my mind, they've been married for a long time. They enjoy each other's company. It's a really cool environment. And that's one of the things that I want is I want a marriage that I'm excited about both today and 50 years from now. And so it's that holding hands moment. You know, I was joking with Amber recently that we were arguing about who wants to hold hands more and how lucky we are to be in a relationship where that's the argument where it's a play argument.
Yeah.
Like we're arguing like, I want to hold hands more. No, you, and it's like, yeah, okay, you win. And so that's the kind of relationship I want to be in that the you know, it's like when I get fake mad at her, it's because, you know, that type. And so that picture is that reminder of what, you know, it's not about what I get from the relationship. It's about what I'm allowed to give. You know, which is super cool. And I have a playlist of like songs we had played at our wedding. I have a subset of that on my phone that when I don't have Wi-Fi access or don't want to listen to my Spotify downloaded lists, I'll listen to this list of all these songs that remind me of her. And so it's not a vision board in that case, but it's a reminder of all the investment that I want to make to the most important human relationship on the earth for me. You know, and my kids, I love my kids. And so how do I invest in my kids and how do I, you know, and so these are all these reminders of how I invest my time, my energy, my money. Right. And so the vision board is a visual for that. I've got an audio playlist for that. I've got, you know, these things that are reminders of why I make the choices that I make so that I'm deliberately investing my time, my skill, my talent, my treasure into the things that are important to me.
Okay. So, and for the listener, by the way, somebody else might take a picture of that watch because they want the watch.
Sure. I have friends who have that watch and they like it a lot. In fact, I have one of the watches by them and I like that watch and I enjoy wearing it, but it's not that's
not the message it sends for you. That's not why you have it on there, right?
I've driven in cars on the racetrack before, lots of times, and I have a picture of 2 race cars on my vision board, which have nothing to do with racing. But it's a visual reminder of a lesson that I learned about being in a car that slow is smooth and smooth is fast, and you don't want to lose speed in the turns. It's not because I want to go get in a race car every day. It's because I want to remember that I don't want to lose speed in the turns of my life, right? That I want slow to be smooth and smooth to be fast. And it's an important lesson for me that I had. So it's a visual reminder of how to live my life in that moment. And so really the vision board is very much about me and reminding me of the things that I want to be and do each day to be who I want to be.
Great. I love it. And this aligns with your personal mission and your goals and everything else. It's the life that you want to have.
Yeah, I put a vision board of a condo that I wanted to own one day. And 5 years ago we bought a condo that wasn't the one in the picture, but it was like I wanted that lifestyle for a season of my life based on living in Manhattan on, you know, half-time for a year. And that became true. That vision became a reality.
Right. So where do you have yours?
My vision board I keep electronically, and then I keep a copy. I have a journal that I have, electronic journal, and it's the inside page of that journal. And then I keep it in a place where I can update it every year as well, inside of a document that I can update the pictures and do all of that. And then at various times in my life, I've had a picture that I've printed it out and I've laminated it and kept it on my desk. And so I think all of those things are really, really handy. I love the idea of having one visually on your desk, and then I have one on a screen that I have up.
Right.
You know.
Where else have you seen people? What works for other people?
I've seen some people put a copy of it on their mirror in their bathroom, like near their bedroom. I've seen some people put parts of it, like tiny little reminders on the rearview mirror of their car if they're in the car every day. Not obstructing the mirror, of course, but like something where they can a place they're looking regularly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen so those are different places that I've seen it. I've seen some people place them, like I've seen push them in different parts of the house, which might make their partner not so excited about having a vision board everywhere.
Yeah, I tried the bathroom mirror with more goals, with like blue note cards and put goals, and I just ignored it. Now, maybe my subconscious saw it, but the mirror didn't work for me, but I think it works. I've heard other people it works fantastically well, right?
I think you find what works for you, and then I've met some people where something works for a while, then you've got to change it up. Right. I've met some people where one thing works for the rest of their life, and that's what they do. And I think I have no judgment about which of those. I think you've got to find what is working for you in the moment, and then if it's not working for you, find what does work for you, and then, you know. And I think that's what the genius of Ogilvy's book about living with intentions is. Like, I got to a place in my life where my goals were so rigid that like I had every minute of every day mapped out, and it was like 15 hours a day of personal and professional and workout and this and it was like, whoa, that for me that became too much. For some people that might work really, really well. So I have no judgment about whether that's good or bad. I just know what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And so I think having a toolkit around that and knowing what tools exist, and then, making sure those tools work so that you're getting what you want to have. Not everybody wants what I want, and I don't want what other people want. And so it's about getting myself aligned to my path. I was telling someone recently, again, I'm Catholic, so when I go to heaven, the one conversation I don't want to have is God saying, like, "Hey, John, you took Randy off my path for Randy." I don't want someone following my vision board. I want someone following their vision board, or not vision board, or whatever. But I want to help people along their path for them, not my path for them.
Wow, that might be a great episode in the future. I want to take somebody off their path for them. That's pretty deep. So I like that. Well,
I did it for a lot of years. Yeah. I mean, I worked in such a way as a manager where I thought that I knew what was better for them than they did, in a very self-important and non-beneficial way to them. Very well-meaning, by the way. I really did deeply care, but I was, I had a set of blinders on where I thought, and I told people that I knew what was best for them, and not explicitly, but it wasn't helpful.
Right.
And so now I want to really help people find their path for them. Excuse me. I want to help people find their path for them so they can find their path. And then if I can help them along that path, I want to help them along that path. But I don't want to, and I might even offer them, like, "Hey, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that?" as, a friend or as a coach or whatever. But I definitely don't want to be in the business of making someone's decisions about what their path should be. Like, that doesn't seem healthy to me.
By the way, for what it's worth, I have my vision board on a poster board on the wall, my desk. So in my office, where I have to walk between my desk and that wall every time, or even if I just turn to my left, I see it, but I see it all the time. I have it in a place where when I journal, I try to look at the vision board for 10 or 15 seconds just to take it in, for that to align with my journaling. Some people want to, we did it as a family a few years ago with Julie and the kids.
Yeah.
And she went about these great big poster boards, right? Yeah. I mean, mine's, I don't know, like 2 feet by 3 feet probably, but she bought these great big ones. So yeah, I don't think there's a right. In my old house, I had it on the wall right in front of my desk, so.
But I have a life plan, which I think is too much for most people. But my life plan has, like, on page 1, it has my core values for me personally. It has my personal mission statement. It has the 4 Ps, right, which we've talked about, which is like, what are the things that I'm skilled at? What am I passionate about? What's the mark I want to leave on the world? And then how do I want to spend my time, talent, and treasure, which is those 4 questions about meaning in life. And I've summarized them. So it's a whole document that I keep and look at, but I've summarized them on that document. And then I talk about, like, my keys to success, and I've got a 10-year narrative about what my life might be like. And I think most of that's too much for most people. But I've been doing this since I was 19 years old. And in that document is my vision board. And so that whole document aligns top to bottom, and it thinks about, it certainly contemplates my fitness, which is my mind, body, and spirit. And it contemplates my family and friends and my fun and how I deal with finance and professional parts of my life. And so it's all kind of in that document. And that document allows me to do is, when I have a thought about it, I can go drop that thought into the appropriate part of that framework and know that it's someplace that I don't have to remember it. I can go look it up. And so that's my index for my life plan. And so
you've been doing it since you're 19, so it's exactly the same now as it was at 19.
Yeah, no, there's literally not a single part of it the same. The words life plan might have been there when I was 19. Those words might be on the document today. Mm-hmm. But I think that the document's 100% different than it was when I was 19.
How often do you change it?
Anytime I have a thought that I want to get down and I don't know where to put it down, I'm not sure where it belongs, I have an empty page at the back where I just put that thought, and then when it becomes clear where that thought belongs, I put it where it belongs, or I delete it if it doesn't belong. But, like, I had a bucket list at one point that was, like, I don't know, 8 pages long of bucket list items. And then, over the years, some of those bucket item things I got, so I crossed them off. A huge number of them I realized weren't that important to me. I really didn't want them. Yeah. Like, just didn't want them.
I've done the exact same thing, right? I'm just thinking, mine's a little different than yours. It started out with magazines, was the original way I did it. You take magazines and cut things out, right?
Collage.
Now I find just using the Google machine and going on the internet and typing what you're looking for works better.
Randy uses DuckDuckGo for that.
Yes. Or Brave. But but I print stuff up, print it, cut it out, put it on the board, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And similarly,
I do the same thing, but I instead of printing it, I get the copy
Yeah.
and then I put it on a digital board
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll print the digital board if I want to.
But I have, over the years, some things I've accomplished and taken off. Some things, like you said, I look at them like, why did I put that on there? And it just doesn't resonate with me anymore. And I've also taken things I have glue and I glue them on there. I'll just take something and put it over top of the old one or whatever. So it's a living document.
And one of the ones, so I've got the 5 people that I surround myself with on my vision board in some way. And so I have mentors on my board. I've got my wife is on the board. I've got a picture of me in a certain state of health that I liked on the board. So there's things I struggle with on the board too that I want to get better at. Health was one of mine. 2 years ago, I really committed to health and really failed that commitment. And then I got really serious about it the next year. And I said, okay, I'm going to change my calendar and my financial investment in my health. And I got really serious about it, and it made a huge difference. And so, at different years, I have a different focus. And so this year is a focus, a health year. And so I'm as strong as I've been in 30 years. I'm eating better. I'm not eating perfectly this year, but I'm eating better. I hit my ideal target weight, so I'm in range now. I look the way that I want to look. So I've accomplished a lot of those kind of benchmarks, and now it's about finding lifestyle and behavioral kind of like, how do I keep that going for the next 50 years?
Do you have a lot of images? I've got images on mine. I've got like a really nice house on the ocean, right? Which is something I would like to have at some point.
Sure.
I love the ocean. But I've also just got words. It might be something as simple as fun, as a reminder to myself to sometimes just slow down and have some freaking fun, right? Do you do that too, or no?
Yeah, I have words on mine for sure. My core values are my core values, and I have those someplace else, but I do have words on there. And so I have a couple of like the most important lessons that I've ever learned on there. Like 80% intensity is on there. And there's a whole lesson that I'm not sure if we've talked about on the podcast or not about 80% intensity. There's a really meaningful part of my life. And so those words are on there because my 100% intensity can be really corrosive to relationships and to people. And so I try to maintain like 80% as the high threshold for my intensity. I try never to go past that unless I'm alone. Yeah. And so that's one of the, and then another one that's similar that I have the words on there is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. Similar and related to the 80% intensity one, but I do have words on there for sure. And I see lots of people have their core values on there. I think it's great.
Yeah, mine, I'm just thinking I've got similar to your I love the watch one, right? That I've got things where there's a picture and it means something to me that other people may not know what it means. There's other things I have on there that are very specific. I've got a section of mine that's just a reminder to travel more, and I've just got things that it's from places to a suitcase to an airplane, etc. that show me that. I've got words. I've got
one of the cool conversations that came up for me and Amber was about our, how we want to live in retirement and what we want to do. We want to travel, and so we picked an actual travel budget based on the things we want to do, and it's led to this really great conversation about the places we want to go, the things we want to see. The number itself is immaterial; doesn't really matter. But it led to this really cool conversation about dreaming together and talking about the future life we're building together, and that led to like, okay, well, where do we want to travel this year, and what are the things we want, and it makes for a set of intentions for us that are where we get to be really intentional about our marriage, and not just in the big moments, which I would have said earlier in my life I was pretty aware of the big moments. But it's helped me to be more intentional about the day-to-day moments too, which I think, hopefully Amber on the show sometime, she can report back whether or not that's accurate. But I think she would report back that like I'm pretty decent at the in between moments too, like the little things, the day-to-day moments, and being just more grateful. And when I see it, gratitude, say it, right? Mm-hmm. See it, say it. And so I think that's the So I think that. And that relates not just to, I think, marital relationships, but friendships and work relationships too. I think, we could all use a little more gratitude in the world. And I think we'd get a lot more of what we wanted if we just told people how grateful we were for the things. And when we see it, we say it. And so, pay attention to when people are on mission and thank them for it. It's funny. Ryan, who's works as my chief of staff, is in the room right now. He doesn't have a microphone. I wish I could ask him, like, do I really, like, I'm saying I do that. Like, do I really do that? I think I think he's nodding yes. Not sure if it's a real yes or not, but
it looks sincere to me.
He can fact check with Randy sometime. Come back to another episode, be like, hey, it's the errata episode.
So I'm just thinking as we talk about this. I think a lot of the power is I'm a big believer that you put out into the universe what you want, right? You put it out into the world, and that it's I don't know. I mean, this is a little bit woo woo, right? I mean, but I think it's religious. It's no different than if we are praying to God for it or we put it out there. But so let's talk about that for a minute. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think, like, how does that work? Or maybe we don't know how. Do you agree it works that when you put good things out in the universe or what you want, or bad things?
Yeah, I think so. There's a whole field of discussion around this. The Secret is probably the most famous book and movie on this topic. And then there's prosperity gospel is, I think, the term for it, term of art inside of Christianity. And so I should start by saying I'm definitely not a theologian. And I don't have a full answer to this one, because I think that there's some in the prosperity gospel. I think there's some theology that's at the very least it's debatable. However, in my own experience, when I find that I get what I focus on, and I think I generally get what I focus on because I work toward it consciously and subconsciously. And so, for me, in my faith, I pray like it's up to God, and I work like it's up to me. And again, that's not my language. Somebody else said that to me, and I thought that's really smart. Like I'm gonna work like I have to earn it, but I'm gonna pray like I can't earn it. And so I think that's been really helpful in my life. And I do think that when you it's like when you buy a purple car, you start to see purple cars everywhere. I think there's a level of awareness that happens towards things, and we move toward. So, like for me, I'll give you a really clear example with gratitude. I used to focus on problems so I could solve problems. But then I found more and more problems and more frustration.
Right.
And when I started focusing on gratitude, I don't think I had any less problems in my life, but I recognized all the things to be grateful for in addition to. And I started just spending energy on that also, and life got a lot better. And I don't know if there's been more or less problems, but I certainly like my life a lot more when I'm being grateful. And so, I don't know. I think I danced around the answer. I think you were looking for a more direct answer from me, but I think I danced around a little bit. But I think that's...
Yeah, this is things that you're uncomfortable with. That's okay. That's part of the reason I asked.
I'm not uncomfortable with it at all. I just don't have an answer.
Yeah,
I think I have certainty around lots of things. Right. I have no discomfort here. I'm very comfortable with not knowing. Yeah. I don't, but I also don't want to hold myself out as like,
I get it.
I've thought a lot about this, and where I am in my thinking today is I don't know. And this is a really important part of my spiritual journey, is how do you lean into faith in places of uncertainty? And so no, I would say I'm not uncomfortable here at all, but I definitely don't know.
I believe it works. I don't know why it works, right? I don't know that whether it's praying or putting it on a vision board. I really believe that thoughts are physical things, and it's energy that floats around.
Sure.
That some of this probably goes back to some ayahuasca and some other stuff here, right?
That's a Randy thing.
That has made me more convinced of this.
Sure.
Right. But I do believe that when you put that out in the universe, those thoughts they're real things. They have energy that I'm not smart enough, or I don't claim to understand. But if nothing else, maybe it is as simple as what you said, that it just triggers something in your head that makes you focus on it and therefore makes it happen. But regardless, it gets the results you want.
I don't know the science or the evidence well enough to say anything to the contrary, and my experience does fit with what you're saying. Yeah. And so, I wrote down a goal one time. It was a professional goal, and I'd forgotten that I'd written it down. And like a number of years later, I'd hit that goal, forgetting it was even something I had written down until 10 years later when I found the piece of paper that I wrote it on. And then I think there's other things where you say, I want to go do something. Like when I did the tour of Mont Blanc with some friends, we trained for that trip. And I found a huge amount of joy in the preparation for that. And so I think for me personally, there's some benefit to having something to look forward to and then working toward it. For my own health, having something to look forward to, like hiking from Crested Butte to Aspen, was a real motivator for me to get out and go do some things that I wouldn't have normally done without a deadline. And so some of those things are just me picking arbitrary milestones that I want to hit so that I can go do things that are, and it's the journey as much as the destination in many of these things. And so So I would say that my experience has been very, very well aligned to what you're talking about. I'm also very aware that there are parts of the world where people really want things and they put it out there a lot, and it's just a different environment that I grew up in. It's harder to get from where they are to where they want to be, and so I don't want to poo-poo that either. But my experience has been similar to yours.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of something. This was really pretty transformational for me. This is 30 years ago. And I don't know if I want to use this person's name because of the content, but a friend of mine, he was a national champion in Taekwondo, and he actually came in second in the Olympic trials, so he was the alternate. But
now we've named him. Great.
But he was training.
Don't say what country.
Yeah. He was training for the Olympics as if he was going, and I was helping him train. Now, by helping, that meant I held pads while he kicked him.
Yeah,
okay?
sure.
Because I had zero ability or flexibility.
But
he would train for hours and hours. And he went to this little gym, and he would train, and I would get there. He's already training, and one time he takes me and my other friend. He goes, "I got to show you this." He's like, "But you can't tell anybody. This is the guy that owned the gym, was also a professor," and he's like, "This is being funded by the CIA." So it's 30 years ago. I think we have a statute of limitations. Probably nobody's going to get killed here.
Know.
But he turns on his computer, and I think it was like an Apple IIc, 2E, again, 30 years ago. And there was a computer program, and you simply picked one of two pictures. There was, and this was a little challenging for me because I'm like 40% colorblind, okay? One of them was a picture of Earth from space, so if you envision that, it's a lot of blue, green, mostly ocean. The other one was from the shore of a wave crashing in. So two distinctly different pictures, but much the same colors. And the way this computer program, as I recall it, worked is it started out half of the screen was each picture.
Yep.
And as fast as that computer could do calculations, it would randomly pick a pixel, or it went in order, I don't remember, and it would just 50-50. It would either keep it the same or change it. And the object of this is you would pick one of the pictures, you would not touch the computer. The only thing you would do, you would hit the space bar to start, you would sit in a chair and think, and you would impact what picture came. And when I first started this, I remember thinking, this is crazy. My brain can't impact the computer. But when you start doing it, you would realize if you would think, like you'd say, okay, I'm going to focus on the Earth. And if you focused on Earth, the picture of the Earth would come in. And if you focused, but then you'd get weak and you'd think, ocean, go away. Ocean, go away. Or you'd just start think about the ocean, and the ocean would come.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you thought about happened, Earth or ocean, and it worked equally well if you thought about one. And my other friend, we would start doing it, and we got pretty good. Like when you first started it, I don't know, sometimes you'd win, sometimes you'd lose, and you only won when it was 100% one or the other, okay? And I remember doing this, and it was hard. But then I kind of became obsessed with it, and my friend did too, and we would do it every day. And I could beat it in 10 or 15 seconds, 100% of the time. Like whatever I thought of.
I have so many questions.
I could do it every single time. I could beat it. By the way, I have spent hours looking for this on the internet. Okay, I found
so
similar.
Let's just start with this. Was it one single floppy disk this thing ran on?
No idea. I don't remember, John. Don't remember. But we would sit there. So then what we started doing, it became too easy to beat it. We would sit side by side.
Yep.
We would predetermine, I'm going to take the ocean and you're going to take the Earth, or vice versa.
Tug of war.
We would hit it, and we would go. And that was even more fascinating, because if one of us would start getting an advantage, all of a sudden it was two different things. And it could end so fast, because if one of us started thinking Earth and the other one would think Earth, go away, it was unbelievable how fast it would fill in and be the other.
And there
way.
was no other sensor attached to the computer?
Nothing. You would sit in a chair.
But there was no other sensor you knew about?
It was an Apple IIe or 2C. No, nothing. I mean, it was just a computer sitting on a desk.
All right. So, Randy, the next question I have for you is, who do you really work for?
But, and by the way, then what I wanted to do is I wanted to see what would happen cause I would just hit the space bar and walk away, and we'd go downstairs and help our friend work out. And come back 2 hours later and it would still be running. Every time it would still be running. So the program.
What happened if you walked downstairs, worked out, and thought about the ocean from downstairs?
Never tried that. Should have tried that. That would have been great. So anyway, you can find things on the internet now. The last time I looked, I think I found an experiment from Stanford and another one from MIT that were similar over the internet. One of them was a pendulum that would swing from side to side, and another was a clock that would either randomly go clockwise or counterclockwise. And you could do it over the internet in a server sitting at Stanford. This is several years, so people can Google this. I'm sure they're still up there somewhere.
Put that in the bucket of things I know absolutely nothing about and find very fascinating.
So that was I think that ties into, I'm more interviewing you here, so I kind of took us on this rabbit trail, but that transformed a lot of my belief systems, like witnessing something that I would have said was 100% impossible, that definitely changed my view of this 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, 30 years ago, we didn't know how gravity worked, and we do now. Science is an amazing thing. So that's why when you said that I'm uncomfortable with it, I corrected and said, no, I'm actually very comfortable, just very uncertain. I think there's just, there's areas where I think I'm an expert, and I know I'm an expert, and there's places that I just definitely don't know, and so things where I just operate by faith, and this is one of those areas where it's like I don't fully understand the what the secret calls the law of attraction, or some people call it prosperity gospel, or anything like. I don't fully understand that, but I do know that I want to be grateful, and I do know that people who are grateful for what they have tend to feel like they have more abundance as a perspective, and I just choose to have that perspective, and so I'm very comfortable with that.
I think too, we've all seen people that they think about being sick, and then they just, whether that physically makes them sick, or they think they're sick, or it attracts it to, I don't know. I think that people that, what was
that can happen too.
Hypochondriac? What's
Hypochondriac.
Yeah, that.
I joked with someone once that I thought they had acute intermittent hypochondria. Anyway, that's
all right.
I want to be okay. Like I'm not going to understand everything, and I'm really okay with that. I think, and I know people are like, if I can't understand the underpinning thing, then I can't, then must not be true. And I don't have the capacity to grasp everything, and so I want to be able to accept some things on faith. And I saw this really great article. I don't know if it's true conversation or not, but it's a great story where someone was talking about good and evil, and they said, why did God create evil as an example? And the explanation that was given was really cool. It's like, do you believe in cold? Let's go through that. Do you believe in cold?
Yeah.
Yeah, cold doesn't actually exist. Cold is actually a description of the absence of heat in physics. And so what you're really describing is not actually, cold is not a thing. Cold is describing the absence of a thing. It's describing the absence of heat. And so in this story, the person was saying that evil is an absence of good. It's not something separate and distinct. And they went on to describe this in a couple of different ways, that, it wasn't that it was something, it was the absence of something. And they used a couple other examples that I don't recall off the top of my head. The cold and hot one was the one that really, really stuck with me. Oh, light and darkness. So the darkness isn't really a thing. It's the absence of light. And so that really bent my mind. I was like, wow, that's a really interesting perspective on, on the origin stories if you're a Christian. And so anyway, I don't, this is not a podcast about that, but right. It got me thinking, like, there are certain boundaries to and limitations to my knowledge about things. And there are some things I accept on faith. Gravity, I accept on faith. I know that we understand it now as a scientific community. I don't understand it still, but there are people who can explain gravity scientifically where they couldn't 20 years ago or 10 years ago. And but I've always accepted gravity on faith. Like, I know that if I, jump off a rock, I'm going down. So.
Okay. Let's go back.
Vision boards.
I took us way down a rabbit trail, but I think it was interesting to me. So hopefully it's interesting to those listening. Let's go back to just the impact of this on a team, on culture. You run a company, missions, vision boards, like what?
Yeah, we do vision boards with people onboarding in our companies, generally speaking. And now that you're saying, I'm thinking I need to go back and make sure that we're having a little bit more fidelity inside of our onboarding and annual planning process. But where it's really important is keeping people motivated and understanding what motivates someone so that you're helping them get what they want. So in our companies, if we're well aligned and someone works in my company if I'm helping them get what they want and that's aligned to what the company needs, then I can really focus on helping them get what they want. And they feel that and they like that. And so I'm really committed to helping the people that I work with get what they want. And I think they would report back to you that that's true and that I put a significant amount of time thinking about their well-being from their perspective, not their well-being from my perspective, but like, if I'm thinking about like their retirement and their finances, like what are things that I can do as a manager to impact that? And so, so I think, and I'm not perfect at it for sure, but vision boards are a way of understanding what is important to people.
Okay. So with the role of a leader, how does a company measure this? How do they evaluate if they're
Well, this actually fits into alignment, right? And alignment means you understand what motivates your people, how to get that motivation aligned with what the company wants so that you're actually helping the individual and the person both win. And sometimes that's just not perfectly aligned. Someone's doing it because they want to make money so they can go have their hobby after work, which is totally fine, by the way. Sometimes they're doing it because the work aligns perfectly, also fine. And so understanding how to keep that alignment is really, really important for people. And that means helping people sometimes migrate through the company. I worked with someone at one of my companies once where they were coming back into the workforce. They took a couple of promotions at the company and then left for the next job. And when they left for the next job, they were literally apologetic. They were like, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I've got to leave." And I was like, "Well, I hear I've got to leave, but you don't owe me an apology. Like we both knew that you were, you were going through your career, and this was a stop along the way. It wasn't the whole career. And would I like to continue working with you? Of course, but the next step is more important." And so when I got comfortable with the fact that someone's next step being away from the company that may not be best for me personally, if it was good for them, that was more important to me, then it became much easier to work with really quality people and to really invest in them and not worry about when they were going to leave. Like that was a big watershed moment for me as a manager. Yeah. And so having a vision board helps you understand where it is along the way. And it also helps me to see when they're going to leave so I can make sure that I'm prepared for that in a way that's helpful for the company and for them.
What would you tell somebody if they want to keep, let's talk about the mission again specifically for a second. How do you keep it top of mind for somebody?
You got to keep it in front of people for sure. Like we have knowledge bases and we talk about it regularly, what the mission of the company is. And we bring that back to once a year, like long-term planning and then annual planning and then quarterly planning and then weekly meetings. We review the quarterly plan every week. And so it's always kind of aligned top to bottom in that way. Yeah.
What should I have asked you today?
I think about mission drift. That's the one thing we didn't talk about. Mission drift is destructive to an organization. And there are lots of missions that have drifted from one thing to another. I think, I'm going to speak about something I know very little about, which is the Rural Electric Commission. They have a massive budget for the U.S. government. And I'm pretty sure that electricity has been sorted out in rural communities in this country for a very long time. And so and I think they still have a budget right now. And they probably are doing great work on something else that I don't know about. So I'm not trying to actually call them out or anything. But like, would it be better for an organization like that to be shut down than have a new organization come in? Maybe the same workers, same employees, or call it something different or change the mission. But like but not letting the mission drift. And I think there are lots of companies where the mission drifts, and I think that's where you get into trouble. And so when I work on the board of directors of a company, I work very hard to understand the mission, and then I take it upon myself to make sure that I work against mission drift. Mission drift means strategic drift. It means wasted resources. It means misalignment. It means all the things that we don't want in an organization. And so I think being super clear about mission means being super clear about not allowing the mission to drift, which is different than mission change. And mission change can happen. Like when Microsoft said, "Hey, we don't have a PC on every desktop," but close enough. Like, time to move to the next. Like that, I got it. Like that's not mission drift. That's mission shift to like a brand new thing. But I think mission drift can be really, really dangerous for an organization. I see this with nonprofits that are trying to do too much outside of their original mission. Like that can be a bad thing. I see where someone's strategy is too broad and too much lack of focus with the strategy means you have no focus at all, and that can be really bad for a company. So I think mission drift is a thing that leaders need to really pay attention to and surround themselves with advisors, board directors, that keep them very well aligned. And that's a startup might have a change of mission because it's trying to find its place in the marketplace, but that's different than mission drift. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the example you use, a government organization has the luxury of they're held less accountable, and they keep getting tax dollars. They're not going to go broke. A company can't do that because they'll likely go to business.
Yeah, like and again, I think in an organization like Harvard, which is one of the most respected universities in the entire world, they weren't started with the mission they have today, and so I think their board of trustees would be well served to decide if that's been deliberate, which would be great if it was, or if it was drift. I don't know the answer because I'm not part of those conversations at all. But I think just making sure that organizations understand where the danger of drift is coming from and making sure they don't drift is a really important conversation leaders need to be having. And again, deliberate shift is awesome. Unintentional drift, not awesome.
Anything else? That's a mission drift. What else didn't I ask that I should have asked?
I think asking how that applies to the vision board, same thing, right? Like reevaluate once a year, but don't drift throughout the year. So yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been fantastic as always.
Yeah.
Listeners, again, tools on our website, talesofabundance.com. If you want to dig into this, work on whether it's your company mission, your personal mission, your vision board, have some fun. Just go in there. There's not a right or a wrong way to do it. We probably didn't talk enough about that. It's just
put something down on paper, like just get it started and then make adjustments. It's a living document until you stamp it. And so just keep trying it on until it fits.
Yeah. Figure out what works for you.
Yeah. And then feel free to reach out to, like we're available. So we do have resources, but also happy to talk.
Great. Thanks, John.
Talk soon.
Been great.
Thanks, Randy.